Hello, and welcome to my video on qualitative data collection tools. Let's start. There are many different ways to collect qualitative data. There are in-depth one-on-one interviews. There are focus group interviews. There are observations, documents, artifacts, and some other supplementary techniques. So, researchers usually select one primary data collection strategy. Let's say interview. Interviews are your main focus, but you might use others to verify your findings. Um, this is called triangulation. There is a separate video for triangulation and crystallization. So I don't want to go into triangulation too much at this point. But if you are using multiple sources to collect your data, it just shows that you will have trustworthiness and credibility in your study. Trustworthiness and credibility, these are terms associated with qualitative studies to show your findings are trustworthy or credible. But let's start with the most well-known data collection technique, in-depth interviews. So you all know you will ask a participant questions. These will be open-ended questions. So don't ask questions where the answer is yes or no. You might want to ask them something very open-ended where you say, tell me about your experiences with using technology in class. There are three types of in-depth interviews. So firstly is unstructured. Unstructured, it's good because you have no predetermined questions, but what makes it good is you follow the lead of the participant. So the participant, if they go in one direction, a direction which you might not even have thought of, you can sort of follow that person into that direction. Whereas a structured interview, structured is you've got a set of questions and you are going to stick to those questions regardless of what the participant says. Structured is not the best because what if you've got 10 questions and you come to question number 7 and the participant says something very interesting? Now, with a structured interview, you don't have the flexibility to follow the participant in that direction. You can't create a question and say, oh, wow, tell me more about that. Um, Structured interviews are a bit rigid. So, in between an unstructured interview, where you have no predetermined questions, and a structured interview, where you follow the questions no matter what, is the ideal. So, sort of the ideal is semi structured because you have questions, predetermined questions, but you allow yourself the flexibility to change the questions or jump over questions or move questions around as the interview goes along. So, this is the one that is used the most. So you want to use prompts. So you might want to do verbal prompts like, that sounds interesting, or wow, sure, yes, I see, okay, oh, tell me more about that. So verbal prompts, which will prompt the participant to say more, or non-verbal prompts where you nod, or just your posture will tell the participant to go on. So there are prompts, there are probes, where you will say, maybe I don't quite understand. Please tell me more. Even if you do understand, you might say, I don't fully understand. Can you please tell me more? What do you mean by this? So you sort of ask, you probe, so you want more information. Um, in the end of an interview, you've got to summarize the interview for the person. A lot of people, when they get to the last question, they will ask the last question, the participant will answer, and then they say, "Thank you very much," and they leave. But you need to summarize for the participant quickly, maybe just in 5 minutes, what are the main things you felt the participant said. The reason for this is there's a separate video for trustworthiness. Um, so the question is, how do you show your findings are trustworthy? And in that video, we explain that you always run everything by your participants. So even your interview, when you are done with your interview, you should say, okay, A, B, and C is what I got from the interview, and maybe some challenges you pointed out were X, Y, and Z. Did I get this correct? Is this a true reflection on what you said today? And then when that participant says yes, um, there's more trustworthiness in your findings. So there is a very big misconception about interviewing being easy because you're just talking to someone, but there's actually difficulty in gaining truth from someone. Um, I know that there is a separate video on ethical considerations. So obviously, when you interview people, you will keep their identity private. So it's confidentiality and anonymity and all those things. But people are still scared of the truth coming out. So a lot of people you interview won't tell you the truth for fear of them being exposed. It's actually very difficult to get the truth from someone, especially if it's a difficult topic. I mean, what if you go into schools and you are doing a project on school leadership and you need to ask the teacher, how is your principal as a leader? Now, this person might be scared that you go running to the principal after the interview to say, wow, your teachers really don't respect you as a leader. And specifically, this teacher said this. They are scared of the truth coming out, especially if it's sensitive topics, or especially if you're in a position where questions are being asked about the leadership. So it is very difficult to get the full truth from someone. It is not as easy as people think. Okay, so some skills don't start cold. You have to be a very warm person. Remember the purpose of the interview. So don't let the interview run off into a direction that you didn't want. You need to find a comfortable place. This is, of course, when you are doing in-person interviews. These days with COVID, most researchers are just doing online interviews. Um, you've got to establish trust. You've got to be honest. You've got to keep eye contact, even if it's an online interview. Switch on your camera, keep that eye contact. You've got to ask open-ended questions. Avoid duplicate questions. Um, that's just wasting someone's time and it feels like interrogation rather than a conversation. And remember to use your probes and your prompts, which we've discussed a bit earlier. Okay, so you need to listen more and talk less. The only place where you will be talking a lot is maybe when you introduce yourself and the purpose of the study, so in the beginning, and at the end, where remember you have to summarize what the person said. Um, Actually, even in the beginning, you might not say as much because remember your participant has to sign a consent form. This is all covered in the ethical consideration video, but the consent form will already tell them what the study is about because they have to consent to being part of the study. So in an interview, you don't really have to say much in the beginning. because the participants would have signed a consent form, which would have informed them what the study is about. Okay, then you have to think about their culture. Don't be culturally insensitive. Think about social differences. If you're going into a rural school to interview teachers, don't flaunt if you are affluent. If you are well off, don't wear all, these fancy jewelry and drive in there with your Porsche. You need to be very sensitive about social differences. And that might be socio-economic differences, because you want to relate to the person and you want that person to relate back to you. Okay, avoid leading questions. Um, a leading question, we do have examples later of poor questioning techniques, but that would be like, think about COVID and the vaccinations now. A leading question would be something like you asking someone, have you had your COVID vaccination? And I do hope you have, because if you haven't, you are contributing to COVID being spread or new what strains sort of developing. So you are leading that person into answering yes, they had a vaccination just due to your almost aggressiveness. They are scared to answer you honestly. So don't lead them into answering what you want to hear. Don't interrupt them. If there's a silence, let the silence go for a while. See if the participant adds something. Don't be biased. We have spoken about biasness in a couple of videos, where you should not go into an interview with a predetermined thoughts in your head. Um, in another video I created when we discussed bias, the example I gave is like I do a lot of research on safety in schools. And from News 24, we can see the safety in South African schools is just horrendous. Every now and then we read about a child falling into a pit latrine and dying. We read about schools like the Van der Bijl Park school where the platform collapsed and children passed away. These are all safety issues. So if you go into a school and you want to interview people about safety, you can't be biased. You can't already in your head have the idea that all South African schools are unsafe. Because what happens with bias, if you already go into the interview with that notion, then regardless of what the teacher tells you, you will in the interview look for all the bad things. We talk about cherry picking. You will end up cherry picking all these sort of bad or negative things the teacher said regarding safety, and you will sort of almost ignore the nice and positive things the teacher said. The teacher might have said, listen, we had a couple of break-ins, but now we have CCTV cameras. So if you're already biased and you do cherry picking in the responses, you will just focus on the fact that there were break-ins. And you are not recognizing the fact that the school recognizes there was a safety issue and they now have CCTV cameras. So don't be biased when you go into an interview. You need to be really objective and you need to be really open-minded. And don't fight with answers given. Of course, you're not going to fight someone if they say the school is safe. Um, you are not going to tell that person, no, are you crazy? I saw broken windows when I came in, and obviously some children can step on the glass, and that's a safety issue. How dare you say the school is safe? I mean, you don't fight with answers. If the teacher tells you he or she feels safe in the school, that is their feeling, and you need to respect that. Okay, continuing, you have some initial questions. Like, did you enjoy this seminar? That's maybe not the best question. You really don't want yes or no questions. Um, I can see the initial questions here are all yes and no. Like you would say, did you enjoy the seminar? If they say yes, you might then have your final question following that saying, oh, why did you enjoy the seminar? Or the next one, did you learn something about the seminar? And they would say yes, and you would say, okay, what did you learn? Um, so there are some initial questions. These are yes, no type of questions. They are not ideal for interviews. If you do use them, follow it up. So if you do have a yes, no question, they say yes or no, then ask, oh, you said yes, why? Or, oh, you said no, why did you say no? Okay, so now we are done with individual interviews, focus groups. Focus groups, you get a group of people and you ask them questions. So usually you have around 8 to 12 people in a group. Homogeneous just means they sort of have the same traits. So if you want to interview grade 4 teachers in rural schools, everyone in the focus group would be grade 4 teachers in rural schools. I mean, you won't have 8 grade 4 teachers and suddenly add a grade 12 teacher. That wouldn't make sense. So homogeneous just means they have the same qualities. Um, it lasts about 1.5 to 2 hours. It's for you to get a better understanding of a problem. What's good about a focus group is people tend to say more. Like let's say you've got a focus group about safety in schools, and someone will say, uh, we have a problem in the schools, the manholes are open, those maintenance holes are open. Then someone else might say, oh, I just realized I saw an open manhole in our school, and I only realized now it's actually a big safety concern because a learner or a teacher or a security person might fall into it. So people are sort of with focus groups, they are feeding off each other, which is a good thing. So you can go through the rest, but I think you understand the idea of interviewing a group of people. Okay, observations. Observations, you're observing something, of course. We talked about in a different video with qualitative designs. Like we had an example of ethnography. So ethnography is when you observe a culture, a very specific culture or a very specific social group. With ethnography, usually observation is the main data collection technique. I mean, you can interview people and so forth as well, but with ethnography, observation is the most important thing. You want to observe the culture in sort of their natural setting. So it's to get a deeper understanding of what's going on. Again, we say be very conscious of your own biases, don't be biased. We talk here about how to observe, but I want to say with observation, you have 4 types of observation. You have the complete observer, the observer as participant, the participant as observer, and the complete participant. The differences between these 4 are so subtle and so difficult to explain that I'm making a separate video about this. So you'll see I'm not going to spend a lot of time on observation. You can read these notes, but I will make a separate video where I will again just quickly talk about observation, but that video will specifically be on this one slide. And because it is so difficult to explain this difference, especially the difference between observer as participant and participant as observer, these are so close and almost the same. It'll take me 10 minutes just to explain this difference. So let's not look at observations for now. Okay, documents. So for qualitative data, uh, collecting data, you can look at documents. Um, you can look through minutes of meetings, drafts of proposals, memos. Um, Remember, the qualitative data is all about looking for patterns. So if you are interviewing someone, you are looking for patterns in the responses. Or if you're going to look at minutes of meetings over the last year, you're looking for patterns in those minutes. So you can look at documents. This is also a qualitative data collection technique. Um, we just caution, look at the authenticity of the document and the accuracy of reports. Don't just believe anything you read. And we also guard against selectivity. Remember, we've spoken about selectivity just now. But that usually comes with bias, that if you are already negative in your head about something, you will selectively in these documents look for these negative things. And that is ultimately misinterpreting what the authors intended to say. So just be very careful when you report that you don't cherry pick to say what you want to say. You need to be very objective and neutral when you report. Document analysis is not the same as a literature review. The document analysis we are talking about here is when you're looking for themes and patterns within it, like the minutes of meetings. Um, there is a separate video on a literature review, which you can go and watch so you would understand the difference. Another qualitative data collection techniques is artifacts. Artifacts might even be like logos. So you might give someone different logos and tell them, what do you see in the logos? Do you see any patterns? I wanted to Google logos just now. Let me see what I get. Um, Logos, let me just search. I just want to search images. Let's see. So for qualitative research, um, you can give someone lots of logos. I can see lots of logos here. Let's say it's fast food. Yeah, I see some fast food. We have what? Pepsi, Pringles. Here's McDonald's and Subway. Here's also Starbucks. So let's say you give them some of these fast food type outlets, and then you say, what are the patterns you see? They might say very bold colors. I mean, the M of McDonald's is yellow, the background is red, but same with Pringles, right? The background is red and the wording is yellow. Same with Subway, the way is yellow. Burger King is also using red and yellow. So these are all Denny's. I see also Denny's also. Um, so, when you're looking for patterns in logos, we can see for fast food, they really want to capture your attention. So it really is red and yellow, it seems. Red background, yellow text is the overarching color I'm seeing. Even KFC is red, although it doesn't have yellow. And so you can even look for patterns in logos. So this would be the pattern in fast food logos. You might go to, here's some other ones. Maybe look at clothing logos. What do they have in common? There's a lot of things you can do with qualitative analyses. So artifacts is like I showed you, logos, posters. You can look at posters. How would you collect qualitative data from posters? You can, we did this a couple of years ago with the fourth year group. We got the fourth year educational students together and we put them in teams of 8 and we told them to make a poster about their experience in the schools. As you know, you're all in fourth year educational classes, you go into schools, and you had to make a poster where you could use color and words or pictures. And then what we did, after that, we collected the posters and we actually analyzed them. So it was qualitative data analysis because we were looking for patterns within these posters. So there's a couple of ways you can use artifacts to collect qualitative data. Finally, the last one, supplementary techniques. You can use videos. If you look at a couple of videos, you might always also want to look at patterns. Um, like, for example, I do mention this in some of my videos. I love watching weight loss videos. I'm very fit. I do look after my health. For me, it's very important. So I on YouTube regularly watch fitness videos and health videos and food health and what's healthy now and what are the trends. And what I like to look at are the new trends. So see, I'm doing qualitative data analysis by looking at the new trends, whether it be in fitness, or whether it might be now in eating habits. Like the newest trend is this intermittent fasting. So see, trends differ. So you can look at YouTube videos, you can look at a concept like either fitness or healthy eating, and you sort of you look at what are the trends that are now coming out, the recent trends. Um, so videos and films, photographs, uh, to give you an idea how you can use that for qualitative data analysis. A couple of years ago, we also asked the fourth year educational students in one of the classes to go out to take a picture of the green, meaning nature, on Groenkloof campus that is the prettiest to you or the nicest. I mean, the majority of students took photos of the dam because the dam and the water is very calming. You've got these big trees and there are ducks on the water and a lot of bird life, and that's beautiful. But others, took photos just of like older trees or succulents. There's a lot of succulents on Groenkloof campus. So we ask, go take a picture of your favorite green space on Groenkloof campus and bring it back. And then we qualitatively analyze the pictures to see what are the patterns, what did everyone take a photo of. So that's also a way of collecting qualitative data. So you have seen there are many ways to collect qualitative data. There will be a separate video where we focus on the types of observations. Um, and yes, that is, I think, it. So thank you for watching my video on qualitative data collection methods.